Let's dissect the question in detail. There is an unprecedented epidemic of depression and anxiety among young people. Can we fix this, and how? So the reason I have underlined these bits and differentiated the two sentences is because what jumps out first at me is there is a statement and there is a question. And you're being asked to answer the question, not the statement. So the question is, can we fix this, and how? So in fact, there are two questions. So that's just something to bear in mind. They've given you a statement and a question. So let's look into this a bit further. And this involves looking at key definitions within the question itself. So I would say, as a general tip, always make sure you understand exactly what the definitions of each word in the question mean if you're not exactly sure. Sometimes you won't need to define them, but sometimes there might be words that are a little bit confusing, so it's definitely worth doing this. For example, in this question, the words that jump out at me as potentially ones that you might want to define in your introduction to the examiner are unprecedented and epidemic. Depression and anxiety, I think, are a bit more clear, but you'd still maybe want to define them at some point in your essay. So, what does unprecedented mean? Unprecedented, I've got a definition here. It means never having happened or existed in the past. So, something sort of unexpected, we're not really sure why it happened. An epidemic, the reason I've highlighted this is because it's quite a confusing word, as it's used commonly in two different, very different ways. Sometimes an epidemic refers to an infectious disease outbreak, whereas other times it refers to the definition I've underlined here, and which we'll be using in today's lesson, which is an outbreak or product of sudden rapid spread, growth, or development. So it could be an epidemic of mental illness, it could be an epidemic of hunger, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be to do with infectious disease like the COVID-19 pandemic. So yeah, make sure you define your key terms both for yourself so you understand the question, but also for the examiner or whoever is reading your essay so that they are crystal clear on what you are talking about and what you are arguing. Let's get to the next slide. So we're clear on unprecedented and we're clear on epidemic. What about depression and anxiety? I think when a question mentions different mental illnesses, it is worth defining them because they can have slightly different definitions based on where you go and what sort of scientific journal you access. So here are two common definitions of depression. These aren't, there's not a single definition, but it can be useful to, see these. And I'm not going to read them out, but they're there if you want them. One is from the World Health Organization, which I really recommend as a good resource and website in terms of all things mental health and mental illness, especially from a global perspective, which is important for this question. And one is from the National Institute of Mental Health. And you can see that they define them essentially in very similar ways. They're both very common disorders. They're very common disorders. It's a mood disorder. It distorts your mood. Generally causes low mood, low self-worth, and common symptoms include things like tiredness.